Welcome to my humble but messy basement and chapter 7 Values and Identity. Values are, we've discussed it a couple of chapters, feelings about certain things, good and bad, beautiful, ugly. And the cultural values are those values shared by the majority of the culture. And I try to wrap my head around this because I travel the world and I travel the United States. And often I found that I don't have the same values as others. Do we as Americans share the same values? If you look at CNN and Fox News, it sounds like they're two different worlds. How about your extended family? You and your extended family, do you share the same values? I have many extremely religious cousins, and I have one cousin that came out as being gay. Most of the family basically blackballed her and treated her like she didn't exist anymore. She told me about it. I gave her a big hug and said, "More power to you." It didn't bother me. It wasn't my life, but there are some people that just couldn't handle it. How about you and your immediate family? Do you share the same values? I have a brother and sister. My brother is in high finance. My sister is a X-ray tech. I went in the Army. I've seen a lot more of the world than the two of them have. There's a lot of things we don't see eye to eye on. Even religion. I mean, I was raised a Southern Baptist. And my sister asked my mom one time, she said, "Mom, did it bother you that Chris became a Catholic?" My mom looked at her and said, "You didn't seem to care when you became a Methodist." So, and each one of those religious groups have different moral value structures. I mean, they're all kind of the same, but some are more liberal than others, some are more conservative than others. What we learn from a culture that we are inside of is called emic knowledge, E-M-I-C. And if we learn about a culture from the outside, it's called etic knowledge, E-T-I-C, etic knowledge, etic. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, folks. So we'll say etic, it sounds better, knowledge. And I learned a lot of emic knowledge from growing up in a military family, growing up in the South. I grew up in Connecticut some. But when I had the opportunity to travel the world, I gained a lot of etic knowledge and learned about different cultures. So, is there a dominant culture in the United States? We are a vast country with all kinds of different people in it. Do we have a set of values that we can say these are American values that everybody would agree upon? I don't think so. I think we all have similar values. A good friend of mine in Colorado was a nudist. Him and his wife and his kids went to the nudist colony. Me and my wife didn't go. When I traveled in Europe, if they were selling blue jeans, that may be all the model has on in the ad, TV and billboards. She might be topless. When they were bringing the Olympics to Columbus, to Georgia, the United States, Atlanta, in 1996, I had just gotten back from Europe, and there was this big push to close all the, just how we just say, seedy adult establishments on Victory Drive because they didn't want to offend the foreign visitors. Well, had any of those people left this country and gone to other countries, they'd have found out that most of the other countries, prostitution is legal and taxed. So I don't really know how you're going to offend them. So before the Europeans came to this continent, we had first Americans, or we had Native Americans, or whatever they prefer to be called. And actually, the Iroquois had a very fine governmental structure. It was called the Four Tribes and the Five Tribes. And it was made to maintain peace and harmony. It's basically what our government's supposed to do. Maintain peace and harmony, give you a safe place to live. And then we came and made it better. Well, actually, our government is a mixture of many governments. Our founding fathers took what they liked from the Iroquois, took what they liked from England, took what they liked from France. Separation of power and state was a French thing, and created our government. So, I mean, if you think about it, our government is a diverse structure in and itself. Eventually, we grew together in many ways. Why did we do that? I don't think about it. Originally, we had settlements in Virginia and Boston and New England and San Augustine, Florida, and those were Spanish. So we had these different cultures settling in different places. And when we had these different cultures settling in different places, they brought their own cultures with them in many aspects. But as we grew closer together, our cultures, our values started melding together. You know, some people have used the comment like a melting pot. America's a melting pot. Well, we're not really, because it doesn't all blend together and we're exactly the same. It's more like a chef salad. You know, all these things are mixing together and each one has its own flavor and texture. But what brought us closer together? Improved transportation. The Erie Canal was one of them. Big cities. You know, if everybody lived on an old farm in separate places all over the place and didn't hang out that much together, they wouldn't learn about each other. But big cities are closer together, you're going to learn about more. 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments created a national citizenship that took precedence over a state citizenship. You know, back before that, it was like you're a Georgian. Now you're an American. The Immigration Act, it changed how we started seeing people and talking to people. Radio and television. In the past, we had these isolated little things that could get news via the Pony Express, you know. And then we had the telegraph. Then we had radio. Then we had television. And not only could you hear different people talk, you could see them, how they dress differently. Cars and highways. We're more able now to travel from one community to another. I interviewed a 96-year-old lady and wrote her biography when I was a PhD student. And she said that she hated it when she moved to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, because there was nothing but dirt roads between Mobile and Hattiesburg. Now you can do Hattiesburg to Mobile via the highway in about 45 minutes. Can you imagine doing that on a dirt road in a vehicle that normally doesn't do more than 30 miles an hour anyway? The Great Depression brought people together. World War II increased our patriotism, and we did what we had to for our boys, the greatest generation, and personally, in my opinion, that is the greatest generation ever. Those guys, I was served in the Army 20 years, and I don't know if I could have cut the mustard the way they did. The Cold War, it brought us together as a nation because, you know, we're fighting these bad Russians. So it made us more uniform. Value and orientation theory states basically five different things. Human being and nature orientation, activity orientation, time orientation, human nature orientation, and relational orientation. What are they? Well, human being nature orientation is a worldview. What or who is God? What's the nature of humanity? And nature. The individual is more important than nature. Although if we don't take care of nature, there won't be a place for the individual to live. Science and technology and the scientific method. We as a group of humans have long believed that there's cause and effect. Oftentimes we blame it on something that may or may not be true, but something happened. You know, when this great earthquake happened, it was God's will. He's punishing us. This great fire happened. It was God's will. He's punishing us. Well, you know, the earthquake happened because the tectonic plates are moving. The great fire happened because some idiot threw a cigarette out of his car during a drought. It's not necessarily what some people think it is. The individual is more important than nature. I've mentioned that already. Materialism. This is something I found interesting in the book. Materialism, basically, according to other countries, is a product of the United States. You know, we buy more. Our kids have more toys than other people. We're 20% of whatever population. We're 80% of the consumers. You know, material, I want it, I got to have it. And I'm not saying I'm not guilty. I've probably done it as many times as anybody else has. Activity and work. What motivates people to work? Is it money? Pride? Achievements? I think in many ways we all start working for money. Because we have things we want. We have the materialistic thing going on. But we also need. We have things that we need. We need a roof over our head. We need a car to get back and forth to work. Do we need a nice little fancy iPhone? I don't think so. It's nice to have. It's pretty neat. But is it something we really need? But then on the other hand, in today's society, you could probably say it's a tool that we need to work. I have all kinds of tools. My granddaddy was a carpenter. I've got some of his tools. And I'm renovating my basement, as y'all know already. So I got to go buy more tools. Now, did I have to buy that, compound miter chop saw for a couple $100, or could I have done it with a box by hand? I could have done it with a box by hand, but, I'm kind of lazy and getting old. So, what motivates us to work? I heard a long time ago, find a job you love and you'll never work. And I love teaching. I don't particularly love this method of teaching, but I love teaching. And I really don't consider it work. I loved being a soldier. There were times that I thought it was a whole bunch of BS and it was work I didn't want to deal with. But overall, I did it for the pride of doing it. I sure didn't join the Army to get rich. I could pay my bills. But it wasn't, I'm doing this because I want to get rich. Time is money. There's even a beer commercial that talks about that. If time is money, shouldn't we consider how we're going to spend it? United States especially, time is money. There are other countries that don't see it that way. But in our culture, everything's tied to it. Time is money. It's costing us money. Do you control time, or does time control you? Are you managing your time, or is your time managing you? I love it when I go out in the woods and I don't have my iPhone and I don't have a watch and I don't know what time it is. I love it when I'm working around my property and I don't have those things to tell me it's this time. I find that when I do have my phone on me, Excuse me. I find when I do have my phone on me, I'm more a slave to time than when I don't have it. Innate human nature. What does it mean to be human? What? How does it define human? I was watching TV the other day, and they were talking that of the various species of humanoids, there's like a couple hundred of them, and we're the only one that's left. And what does it mean to be us? Are we born good? Are we born evil? Or both? I personally think that we are born neither, and we grow into either a good person or an evil person, or both. Don't get me wrong, there's nobody that's a saint. And nobody, well, I can't say nobody is totally evil, but in many cases, somebody that we would consider evil still has their standards. I heard a long time ago there's honor amongst thieves. And a lot of times if you a lot of times in a prison, they will not put a child molester in general population because even that's too bad for them. But on the other hand, that child molester may think it's wrong to steal money. Rationality. Why are we rational? Are we rational? If we're rational, then you could say, well, you can be held accountable for your bad deeds because you're a rational person and you know that it's wrong to do things like that in our society. Mutability is something else the book talks about, and it's, are we responsible for our actions? I drove so-and-so and I did so-and-so. Okay, I'm an adult. I shouldn't have been driving when I can't see, so it's my fault. Well, if so-and-so had done it for me, I wouldn't have had to drive. Or I've got a bad temper. And at times I do have a very bad temper. And it's in my DNA. It's in my DNA. I can't do nothing about it. I got a bad temper. I flipped out and oh well, I'm sorry, but I had no control over it. Relationships. We in the United States believe in individualism. You have the right to fall in love with whoever you want to fall in love with and marry them. Many other countries don't see it that way. Because your marriage to somebody affects the family, and the family comes first. So therefore, the family has a say in your marriage. So romantic love or arranged marriages, which one's the best? I think most of us would say, romantic love is the best. But kind of look at the number of divorces of people that fell in love and got married compared to the ones that were arranged. But you can't look at that without, a critical eye. Because divorces weren't normally allowed in arranged marriages. And as a matter of fact, in this country, I have one of my mom's sisters. My mom had 11 siblings, and she's 90 now. But her oldest sister was in a marriage to a guy, and he beat her. They had one child. But back then it was accepted culturally. If the wife doesn't do what she's supposed to do, the husband can take it out and take her and whoop her. Keep her straight. We don't have that in our culture anymore, thank God. But she stayed married to the man for 60-something years. Why? Because it was wrong for her to get a divorce. Self-motivation. What makes us get up and go? What makes us want to do things? During the pandemic, many people had a very hard time, and I still do, to be honest with you, about this online stuff. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get me some coffee, get a little workout in, but it's kind of hard for me to sit down at a computer and read this book and make these notes and make this video when I want to interact with people. But I know I've got to do it. Equality. Our Constitution states that all men are created equal. Well, back at that time, they did not consider women, they considered women worth property and slaves worth property than men. So to them, that wrote the Constitution, a more correct thing would have been all white men are created equal. Well, as they are reading the Constitution now and how it affects everybody, it doesn't mean that men are created equal. It means that every United States citizen is equal. Now, they understand, and they didn't say that we have equal abilities, but we should be treated equally under the law. And that was the main point of it. Conformity. How do we fit in with our friends? You know, I saw a video one time, somebody interviewed somebody that was goth. You know, all the black and the pale makeup and everything else. And so why do you do that? So I don't want to be like everybody else. But you like all your friends. So, you know, they didn't want to conform to the, quote, status quo. They wanted to conform, though, to their friends. And it wasn't just the goth. It was in the 60s with the long hair. It was in the 50s with the guys in the white T-shirts and the blue jeans. You know, people want to be part of something. They want to conform to something. And I mean, we all do that. That's how we are. We want to be part of. Acceptance of the dominant culture in the United States. This was a fairly lengthy portion of the chapter, and I narrowed it down to a few things. The patriotism. I'm a very patriotic person. I've taken flags down that were shredded and taken them to the owner and said either fix it or don't display it. But I was in the Army 20 years. It bothers me when people fly flags that are torn up. But after 9/11, patriotism in the United States was at 70%. 70% said, we're Americans, we've got to do this, we've got to work together, whatever it takes to make it happen. Now in 2018, patriotism was down to 47%. We are a divided country. If you are lean to the right, everything the left does is wrong. If you lean to the left, everything the right does is wrong. When in reality, I think there are more moderates in the United States than this polarization we have. Forces toward regional cultures. When we started, we were regional cultures. And then we kind of came together. And now we're slipping back into regions. Regional economic centers and globalism is causing it. You look at a map where, if you find a map where people have moved, they're moving to certain places. Integration and equal rights have affected regional cultures. Immigration. You know, people immigrate to the United States for a million different reasons. And I know I'm not literally a million. I don't know how many different reasons. But they tend to settle with like people. I mean, if you go up to New York, you got Little Italy, you got Chinatown, you got different areas settled by different culturally similar groups. National and global media. Back when I was young, I know y'all don't like hearing that, but you know, I'm an old man. But we had 3 TV stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS. They're all black and white. And I was the remote control. My dad said, get him, go change the channel. Yes, sir. But everybody watched Walter Cronkite on the news. Or one of the other 2. But most of the people watched Walter. And Walter Cronkite never let you know if he was Democrat or Republican. He didn't show any emotion except for one time. But he read the news. This is the news. And then you make up your own mind about it. Now, we have, what, a couple of hundred different news sources? CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox affiliates. In all this news is coming in, and people are in certain regions that hang out together. They tend to watch the same news. Out in Marion County, where I live, most people watch Fox. I watch Fox. I watch CNN. I watch MSNBC. I watch NBC News. I watch ABC News because I want to understand all the different aspects. I don't want to live in a silo and get this one bit of information. Air transportation. We have these little places we go. End of the Cold War. Regional differences in communication and behavior were noted by a couple of authors, and I didn't write their names down, they're in the book. But he said verbal control and dominance was one, mostly New England area. Affiliativeness and immediacy. Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, they visit more with one another. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in Oklahoma. Here I've got 11 acres, and I see my neighbors occasionally. When I lived in town, I didn't visit a lot, but when I lived on post, I did. And the Pacific Coast has smaller circles of friends and visit less. Arousal and activation. New England is non-dramatic. The South and the Northwest are slow and relaxed. So where are these regions? The book lists a few. Atlanta. Atlanta is one of these regions. Why? Atlanta is a great hub for global connections. Atlanta is like the second largest film industry area. Georgia is anyway. CNN is in Atlanta. CDC is in Atlanta. Coca-Cola is in Atlanta. All these big companies and organizations that have a global outreach are in Atlanta. Charlotte, North Carolina is the southern industrial belt and banking. A lot of manufacturing goes on in that area. Columbus used to be a manufacturing hub. We built charbroiled grills, we had linen and textiles and all this other stuff, and now we don't. Miami has a great link to the Caribbean and the Cuban, Puerto Rico, Latin America. It's influenced by that. Houston, Texas, the Southwest, they're about oil and ties to Mexico. Los Angeles, Southwest California, is the most diverse population we have. And entertainment and tourism are two of their big things, which are both global. San Francisco is the capital of the world's high-tech industry. And Seattle has Starbucks, Microsoft, and has big connections with Asia. So the people in San Francisco or Seattle are getting, I don't want to say molded, but affected by their relationship with Asia. Whereas the people in Miami are getting affected by their relationship with the Caribbean and Latin America. People in Texas are getting affected by the people in Mexico. The book doesn't go into the specifics, but think about the people on the northern territories or northern states. Their relationship with Canada. I mean, there's one city that actually there's a line painted down the middle of that city. One side of it's Canada, the other side of it's U.S. So are those people Canadian and American, or did they mix and build their own culture because of the blend? The book talks about social classes, and I'm not going to go into every detail on them, but I'll run through them real quick. The capitalist class is the upper 1%, and they make greater than $2 million. Well, I will never be a capitalist class unless I win the lottery, but that's probably not going to happen. Upper middle class. Now see, at one time the U.S. had upper class, middle class, and lower class. But they've had to break it down now to 5. Upper middle class is about 14% of the population, and they make over $150,000 a year. You know, where are y'all planning to land when you get out of college? Middle class, about 30% of the population make about $70,000 a year. Working class, also about 30% of the population, and they make over $40,000 a year. You know, $40,000 is not a whole lot to live on, not in today's economy. Well, below that is the working class. I'm sorry, the working poor, and that's about 13% of the population, and they make about $25,000 a year. Can you afford a nice apartment or a small home on $25,000 a year? The underclass is about 12% of the population, and they make about $15,000 a year. Can you raise a family on $15,000 a year? Achieving the American dream has become more and more elusive. It's harder and harder to do. Because you have to have money to make money. And it's tough to climb up that social class ladder. And a lot of times when you climb up that ladder, you find out that you don't really fit in with those people. I am a member of Rotary. And I am probably the poorest person in the 300-something members that we have. I'm the only retired military enlisted. We have a lot of retired military, colonels and generals. They make a lot more money than I do. But one thing I love about Rotary is they don't care who you are as long as your heart's in the right place. But when I hang out with some of these people and their other friends that aren't Rotarians, you ever had that feeling people were looking kind of down their nose at you, like snubbing you, because of who you were or what you did? It's hard to climb that ladder. You know, go up from underclass to working poor, they probably won't look down on you. You know, get to middle class, they probably won't. If you get to upper middle class and you started as underclass, there's still going to be some people that are prejudiced against you because you aren't one of them, no matter how much money you make. Can you say we are actually one culture? We, the United States of America. This is the American culture. Can you? If you can, I'd like to hear about it. If you can't, understand. That will probably be the question we have for discussion. Have a great day. I've enjoyed reading your points on discussion, and I'm looking forward to reading more. Bye-bye.